second connection. Oh, I forgot to turn my Wi-Fi off.
We are live on Instagram.
Okay, we are live.
Wait, Facebook.
Oh, you're
Facebook. Live on Facebook.
We are live on Instagram. No links here yet. They'll start trickling in.
No.
In a minute, hopefully.
Oh, where's my microphone?
Nobody's here yet.
Forget my microphone. That doesn't actually amplify anything.
Right.
It's Friday. How's everybody going? All right, TGIF. But also, I'm super excited for this live tutorial today. I have a lot to accomplish today. But what I'm kind of really pumped about is I had a little bit of a plan yesterday, and then I revamped my plan because I wanted to make cookies that went with Sarah's cookies she made yesterday. So together we'll make a set. So teamwork makes the cookies better.
Somebody said, "Oh my gosh, you're hilarious." I think the microphone.
Oh. Did the chat GPT, did AI say that?
No.
Learning about how AI works around here.
T. Garwood.
So today I'm going to do a lot. I have a lot to accomplish today, but I'm really excited to show you how to use multi-piece stencils, how to do some stencil layering. We're going to use both airbrush and royal icing, and we're going to make a wedding set. So moving away from Easter, you know, everybody's in the thick of Easter, so I figured I'll show you something different. So we're not looking at more Easter eggs. And you can ask questions anytime you want. As always, we will repost this afterwards on both Facebook and Instagram, and then we'll repost it to our YouTube channel. So I am everywhere. You cannot escape me. Ask questions now. If you watch on replay, ask questions too, and we'll go back and answer them. And then I also wanted to plug a couple things. Today's the last day to sign up for the April subscription box. So if you've been on the fence, didn't know we have a subscription box, go to our website and check out the subscription boxes. They come out monthly. It's $22.99. That includes shipping. And today is the last day to get in on April, but you still can get in on April if you want to. And it's month to month. It'll automatically recharge, or you can just buy like a 3-month trial. So that is happening. And we have a sale going on right now. We have an awesome promotion on the Royal Max airbrush machine. It is bundled with the magic screen, which I'm going to use today, and a set of the small colors of our 12 essential airbrush colors. And it's only $184.99. So usually the max on its own is $199. So full price on that bundle would be $240, and we're selling it for $184.99. So that goes through the end of the weekend. So check that out. We also have tipless bags on sale, counter covers are on sale, magic screens are on sale, and you can buy the set of 12 mini colors for $19.99 too. I think that was everything. I think I got it all. Okay. So here's an example of some of the cookies we're going to make today. So we're doing some multi-piece stencils. We're repurposing, we're using some of the flowers that Sarah made yesterday. We're gonna do a wedding dress. I started this one, she's not done yet. And we're also gonna use the 2-piece diamonds stencil. So I'm excited. All right, so let's start. I gotta put my glasses on.
Somebody said it would be awesome if you would provide bridal shower wedding tutorials. So it's perfect.
You can do that.
Well, here you go.
We're doing some wedding stuff.
Jackie just has a question about the subscription box.
Yes.
She wants to know if the April box is going to be Easter themed, but it's a little too late for Easter, so
It's not Easter.
it is
themed.
not.
The theme is, should I say the theme?
They normally like it to be a
No.
secret,
All right, secret. Look at Emily's
but it will not be Easter
It's
themed.
not Easter. It's actually like a year-round, more of a year-round theme. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is something you could use at any point of the year.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so I'm gonna start. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna bounce around between cookies a little bit, and if you're already a cookie decorator, you kind of know like this is the flow. You end up working with one color for a little while, switch to another color. So I'm gonna bounce back and forth between cookies, and I'll talk you through the process of what I'm doing, what colors I'm using, some tips on using the multi-piece stencils, and I pre-made a couple things so we don't have to worry about drying time on some of them. But so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to start using a custom blue. So I want to do a custom color just to show you guys that I made this blue, which is the background of this cookie, and I'm going to use it as the sky on this one. So if you don't know already, you can mix airbrush colors. We sell these little flip top bottles that are great to use for this. So for this one, I just used the white with the navy. I didn't measure it, so I can't tell you exactly like how many parts to parts, but it's a whole bunch more white than navy. So I used a lot of white, and then I just kept adding a couple drops of navy till I got to the color I want. And it's a great idea. You can also do that in a bowl and just pour it in. We have some videos that show that. Pour it into your airbrush cup, but if you're gonna make a lot of cookies with one color, it's a really good idea to do it in a bottle. That way you don't run out, because it's gonna be hard to maybe match the same exact color, especially if you didn't exactly measure. And are all the drops the same? I don't know. So this is great if you have a lot of colors, or you just wanna make a color to keep in your pantry. This is the same as it in here. It doesn't like go bad. Just give it a little shake to create a new color. So you can also do this with, if you want to make a shimmer out of any color, you can start with a pearl shimmer or a silver shimmer, add a little drop of another color to create a color shimmer. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the sky on this cookie. And for this one, I am going to use a turntable. You guys saw yesterday how much we loved using Sarah's turntable. And so I'm gonna make sure I shake this up. And then I do have a fair amount of stuff to do in blue. So I get a lot of questions on, how much color should I put in my airbrush cup? So I'm gonna fill it. That's about as high as I generally fill it. It's right to about where that kind of, the cup changes direction or changes angle. If you only have like one cookie to do, just put a few drops in, that way you don't waste it. Or you can always, if you have extra, pour it back in your bottle. So I apologize also if you can't hear me over the airbrush. We discussed using a mic on me, but I was also worried it would just amplify the airbrush. So I will try to talk louder when the airbrush is on. So to do the sky, I'm gonna come in at an angle, and this is kind of what I showed you guys on Monday, where I'm coming in a little, I'm not on top of it, I'm coming in from the side, and I wanna catch the side because I want the top to be a little darker than the rest of it, so it has a bit of an ombre effect. So again, I'm just coming in. Now I do have my machine high all the way, but I'm not pulling back my trigger all the way. So that way I can kind of control how much is coming out. So once you have this kind of as dark as you want, I'm gonna turn it around, and I'm gonna come a little further away from the cookie and just do some light sweeps. So I'm gonna go about 3/4 down, so it'll end up behind the grass. This is the one I'm replicating. So I don't need to put the color all the way down to the bottom, but I still want it to come behind the grass. And then if you want this to still be a little darker, give it even just 20 seconds to dry is great. If you want to come back and add just a little bit more. So now I have this first step done, and you want to do this first because this is going to end up, behind everything else. You don't want to do this at the end because then you'll end up getting some blue on the green. So this is definitely going to be my first step on this cookie. Any questions so far?
Shanna wants to know where we can find the airbrush bottles. That is our flip top bottle.
Yeah, it's called a flip top.
That is available on our website.
And then I want to point out, so this wedding dress cookie, I basically, when I airbrushed the background of this, I did the same exact thing. So I started on the outside edge and just slowly moved my way in. So it's not a flat cookie. It has a little bit of dimension to the color.
I have a question. Anne wants to know, how do you not get it on the counter? I'm terrible with airbrush.
That's a great question. All right, so we get this question a lot. If you end up, now let me preface this by saying, if it is Valentine's Day and you are airbrushing 500 red eggs, you're going to end up with red boogers. Like there's just, anybody that's been there is like, yep, been there. It might be alarming the first time it happens. But with that said, your airbrush color shouldn't be everywhere. If your airbrush color is everywhere, it's probably a few different things. This doesn't have color in it. So it's probably, maybe you're a little too far away. And so you're spraying, you end up spraying a lot because a lot of it's not reaching the cookie. It's such a fine mist that, there is a fine line that you don't want to be too close to the cookie, but if you're too far away, you're going to end up using a lot of color because it's going to end up like everywhere. And it's not going to all reach the cookie. So it's going to like evaporate into the air. So using a counter cover that we sell, that are on sale right now, is a great way to protect your counters. But you'll see, like there's a little bit of blue on here, but there's not a lot because I was really precise with my direction of my airbrush and I didn't oversaturate the cookie. So this goes along with what I was saying Monday, that if your airbrush cookies are not drying, you've used way too much color. And if you've got your whole counter is covered with airbrush color, you're probably spraying too much color unnecessarily.
Going along with that that cookie you just did, how long are you going to let it dry, that airbrush, before you keep decorating?
So right now, this is a smidge tacky, but by the time I come back to it, it'll be fine.
So a few minutes?
Yeah, a few minutes, yeah.
Annette uses the counter cover and loves it.
Yay, me too. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do one layer of, so we have this 2-piece stencil that makes diamond rings or whatever gemstone you want to make it. It doesn't have to just be diamonds. You could make sapphires, whatever you want. So again, this comes in 2 pieces. So I'm going to use the blue one first. Now you'll notice on Cookie Countess stencils, there's always this little crown and this tab in the top right corner. So if you get mixed up and you're not sure which way is up on your 2-piece stencil and you're trying to match it, these are all designed to match perfectly when the crowns are together on the top right, okay? Now, which one do you use first? So this is also something to consider when you're using a multi-piece stencil. And let me give you some ideas on why you might use one piece first over the other. There's no hard and fast rule. I will tell you, when we do this one, this flower one, the leaves are airbrushed and the flower is done with icing. So for this one, you'll see, I'll do it soon. We're gonna airbrush the green first, because if I did the flowers and royal icing first and then went to airbrush the leaves, the stencil wouldn't lay super flat and you would end up with a lot of underspray on your leaves. So think about building your cookie up. So if the first layer, if one of the layers is gonna be airbrushed, that's the one you wanna do first. If they're both gonna be airbrushed, like this one's both gonna be airbrushed, what I'm thinking is, from a design standpoint, I know that, okay, I'm gonna do the diamonds first because I might wanna be a little more picky about where the diamonds are on my cookie. So if I did the rings first, maybe I wouldn't have such an easy way to see, okay, I want to, maybe I'm gonna do it right here. So that way I have like a nice disbursement of diamonds. It's also helpful if you kind of keep the cookie somewhat in the middle. It'll be easier to, when you do your second layer, find out where it goes. So this is my first layer. Again, I'm gonna use the blue. Now what you'll notice, I'll say it now before I turn the machine on, because this has such little openings, I don't need a lot of airbrush color, and I'm not going to just and cover the entire thing. I'm gonna be a little more specific about my placement so I don't waste color unnecessarily. So I'm gonna be a little closer. Something else I'm gonna say, and sometimes we do these things so automatic, we forget that like it's a thing. If you notice, I I'm not pulling back the trigger the entire time. I stop in between moving to different points. So again, this will help you to not waste color and not have color all over the place. And I'm gonna do a light layer and then come back and do another layer. I'm gonna go back to where I started now. So notice I stop, I pull back again, I stop. So I'm using very little color. And since I want these to be sparkly, I'm gonna use some of that same Roxy and Rich Super Pearl Edible Glitter. And I'm spraying this before I remove the stencil, so it'll only go on to where the diamonds are. Cute, right?
Pretty.
Sparkly.
Now, here's something that's gonna be helpful to you. If you have a cookie like this, that is, you know, a plaque that has a lot of corners, and try to position, and I have to come back to it, position it in a way that you know which side is up. If you turn this and throw it over there and then bring it back and you've got this scattered pattern already on a wonky shaped cookie and you're trying to find your way back to how to put the ring, the band part on, it's gonna be a little harder. So try to keep your cookie in a position that, okay, that's up. I know that. I keep it there, you know, put it on your tray purposefully in the position that will work best.
Good tip.
How thick is this cookie we're doing right now?
So these are, I think all of these, no, most of these are a 1/4 inch.
Yeah, I usually
That
roll
was
to
a 1/4
quarter.
inch. This one was thicker.
Gotcha.
These are, I think these are all 1/4 inch.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, next we are going to do some stripes. Now, for this one, I'm doing this wide stripe in the same blue. So I was talking to Aline this morning, who's our manager, and we were reminiscing about the black and white stripe trend that doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. Sarah, you know what I'm talking about, Kate Spade cookies from 5 years ago, and we couldn't keep a wide stripe stencil in stock at all. And I said, you know what? I'm bringing back stripes. I'm bringing them back. I never let go, but I'm bringing them back. So we're going to use a wide stripe stencil. And this is where I am going to use a magic screen. So somebody asked the other day, because I was airbrushing without a magic screen. Now, why do I want to use, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to use a magic screen today because the wide stripe has the most opportunity to like move around with the airbrush and get overspray, underspray, however you want to call it. So the magic screen will stop that because it holds down the stencil very flat to your cookie, but still allows the airbrush color to go through. So a wide stripe, especially if you were on like a really big cookie, this isn't a particularly big cookie, but if you were on a really big cookie, you would want definitely to use the magic screen, which is bundled with the Royal Max right now in our promotion. So I'm gonna plug that one more time. So here's how you do this. You have your bottom of your stencil genie. Then you put your stencil, then you put your magic screen, and make sure you can see all 4 corners of the magnets. So, I mean, make sure the magnets are exposed. And then you pop on the top layer. So now I have a very secure stencil situation. Now, got my cookie. Now, because this is a rectangle cookie, I definitely want to pay attention to making sure the stripes are straight. So it might be hard to see on camera, but I can see, you know, where the stripes are here.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm where I want to be. Now, when you use a magic screen, you are definitely going to use a little bit more color, probably, but that's how you're going to get a good result.
Quickly, is the magic screen the same as a silk screen?
It is not, no. It uses this, it has the same idea. Sarah, how would you answer that?
It performs some of the same functions, so it will hold the stencil flat and flush to the cookie the way a silk screen does, but it's not a silk material.
So this is food safe.
Correct, and it is a mesh, a metal mesh that won't have to be replaced due to stretching or staining or anything like that.
Thank you. I knew you'd have a better answer. All right, so for this one, I'm still gonna aim down the way I normally would, but I don't have to worry about being like as precise. And you notice I am gonna spray a little bit more maybe than I normally would, but that's it. And then you're gonna lift this straight up. And look at your perfect little stripes.
Pretty.
Right? I love this color too.
So crisp.
So again, this was a mix of white with a little bit of navy in it.
We have a couple of questions on Facebook. Kathy wants to know what setting is best to use the airbrush system at.
So I pretty much always leave mine on high. The Royal Max has a really high PSI, so it shoots out a really fine mist of color, which is great. So, but I find it works best, and for me, I like it best leaving it on high. And then I control my spray more in how much I pull back this trigger. So I've said this in a lot of other videos if you watch other videos, but if you haven't, don't think of this as an on-off switch. Don't just all the way. There is some finesse to, only pulling back a little bit and really controlling the spray through this trigger. Especially as you approach your cookie and you go for that first spray. That's why you'll notice I always spray on a paper towel first, just to make sure that everything's going right. And then I might increase the pressure as I start working with the cookie.
And then Elizabeth wants to know, I think this goes back to the diamonds cookie, but how do you get the spray in a narrow pattern? Her spray is wide and she's having difficulty doing details like you did.
So you would want to be a little bit closer to the cookie. And then one exercise you can do that you can do not on a cookie is grab a piece of paper or paper towel. And we can do this right here. The closer I am, the more narrow it is. So this has a really great precision, especially because the PSI on the Royal Max is so high. If your airbrush machine isn't that high, you're not going to do this. So the closer I get, the more narrow. The further back I pull, the wider the spray. Okay. So practice with that. So if you are trying to do more detail work, you want to be a little bit closer. If you're coloring like the entire cookie with airbrush color, you can be back a little further, and that way it comes out even and not spotty.
That's a great visual.
I like this design.
We're going to hang that on the wall next to Tucker's. And then one more question. Is there a right side or wrong side on the Screen Genie? No, there isn't.
Oh, on the magic
Either.
screen.
Yes.
No,
Sorry, the magic screen.
Yeah.
The Screen Genie actually is different, and that does have a yes or a no.
Okay, the magic screen does not. No, it is flat, and this washes really easy and pats dry really fast. Yes.
If someone's struggling with specks of color, what is that? Is it too
Like
close?
an airbrushing?
Yes.
Probably turn your machine up to high. Okay. Specks happen when you have your machine all the way low, or if you have a clog. So if you have a clog and it's like kind of spitting, you might not need to take your whole airbrush gun apart. You might just need to like rinse it really well with some hot water and get the water, get anything out that's in the clog. We were just discussing that next week we are going to do another live, so I might as well say it now. Sarah is going to go live. I think we decided on Wednesday.
We did, yes.
And she is going to show you how to wash your airbrush gun when you're done using it, or in between changing colors. And she's going to go through a few of the most common questions we get asked that need troubleshooting. So mark your calendar for that, and Sarah will be doing that one. Okay.
Susan says you're a great instructor, by the way.
Oh.
You're very easy to follow.
Yeah, thanks, Susan.
I'm getting a few more airbrush cleaning questions on Instagram, but I'm going to say that maybe we'll address all of those on Wednesday.
Yeah, I would say hold those or ask them, but then we can address them next week. I also will say that we have a whole bunch of videos on our website, a few different ones on cleaning and troubleshooting with the airbrush machine. Now, I did want to point out that the Royal Max, one of the benefits to it is that it has this quick connect and release part to the gun. And so I'm going to switch guns. So it does come with a second holder here, but I'm also going to throw it over here. We have this tool holder that we sell that's also good for holding airbrush guns. So I think I noticed it was rattling a little, like the secondary one was just rattling a little bit from the vibration of the machine. Not that it has a lot, but I'm putting it to the side, not using the second part. That's why I'm doing that, just to keep the sound level down for us. So moving on to green now. So I'm only doing two things green. So we're gonna do the first layer of grass, and we're going to do the leaves on this. So you asked about this. This is like the slightest bit tacky. So maybe I'll do this one first, give that 2 more seconds to dry. So again, I've got a 2-piece stencil here. And one more time, I will show you that these line up when the crowns are at the top right. So I am starting with the green. So I'm going to put aside the roses first and put this piece in my stencil genie. Because I keep grabbing that. So we sell an extra piece. Somebody was asking about it the other day. This is the XTC for extra tall cookie adapter to the regular stencil genie. So I grabbed it with me because I wasn't sure if all my cookies were 1/4 inch. And I keep grabbing it by mistake. So I'm just gonna put it over there. But if you roll out your cookies thicker, you'll wanna get the stencil genie and then get the XTC adapter piece, so it's sold separate. So once again, I'm putting my stencil right in the middle, pop that on. And this has a much more overall busy pattern, so I'm not as concerned with like the placement as I was on that. And just to make my life easy, I'm gonna put it right in the middle, so that way I can find my way again. And for this one, I'm using Gourmet Green. And this is the size bottles that are coming with the Royal Max machine in the bundle that's for sale right now. So I don't need a lot of green, so I'm actually only putting like a few drops in. And this is like the diamonds where I don't have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna, you know, kind of just be a little more precise. Grab them all. All right, so this comes off, and again, it's gonna help you if you remember like which side is up. So for me, this is the top, so I'm gonna put this over here, and I'm not gonna play with it and twist and turn it, so I can find my way back quickly when I go to do the roses. So for the next one, for this one, I'm gonna do the grass first with airbrush, and then I'm gonna do it with royal icing. So that way it has some more dimension than just doing the grass. So I've got my grass stencil. I'm gonna use my stencil genie again. And because notice this one does have a edge here, so I'm gonna make sure that edge is right below the end of my cookie so I don't have like a weird stop to the grass. All right, so I've got this centered on there. So for everybody that was saying, how is the airbrush color not everywhere? You'll notice once again, I was pretty precise with my airbrushing, and there's not even really any green past here. So I didn't just, you know, loosey-goosey airbrush the entire cookie because it's not necessary. So I'm gonna lift this up. So now I've got my grass. Pretty, right?
Beautiful.
What's this cutter? It's in our greatest hits, right? Or no?
This is the Greenwich.
The Greenwich.
Greenwich, yeah, okay.
Yes. We have a greatest hits cutter set, and that is in it. It has four.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so those are the only two things I'm airbrushing in green. Okay, so next up, I had to write myself notes, so I remember what order. I'm not skipping any steps. All right, so let's see. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to a little bit of stenciling with royal icing. and then we're gonna circle back to the airbrush. So what, the first thing I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna show you how I did this cookie. I already have this one started and you'll see why later, but we're gonna do that again. I wanted to show you how to stencil and how to use royal icing on a stencil that was really big, because sometimes that can be a little bit challenging and the technique is slightly different. So this is a cookie I did yesterday, so the airbrush is totally dry, and this one I did a little slightly different color that has some shimmer in it, so I just wanted to show you that. That was one of the ones I also custom mixed. So for this one, this is a really big opening, which for some people they struggle with, and it could lead to some possibly all right, so I'm looking, I went silent for a minute. I was looking at how this isn't quite touching the ground, so I might switch over to the other piece of the genie, the XTC part, and see if that, because I do want it to be as flush. I could still do it the other way, but if I don't have to worry about that, look at that. See how it's like still tight to the cookie, but there's no bend at all. So I'm gonna do that. A little bit of play in my stencil there, but that's fine. So if you watched yesterday's tutorial, I am using all of Sarah's icing from yesterday, which worked out great. Because all of the floral icing is basically exactly what you want. Floral consistency is the same as stencil consistency, pretty much. So this is the same one she was using yesterday. So on this one, because I've got such a large area to cover, and I want to make sure that edges are kind of glued down. So what you're going to notice I do is I'm going to start from my outside edges and just kind of pull the icing in. I'm using hardly any pressure. I looked at that because I wasn't holding it. So I'm just using a little bit of light pressure. And then when I go in with my stencil scraper, I'm gonna take my time so I end up with a really smooth surface. So I'm gonna start pulling it away, put the excess back in the bowl, and I can just kind of start to see the outline of the stencil. So I know I'm gonna stop soon, but I'm gonna do one more swipe and then pull back.
Beautiful.
All right. So the reason I did one of these ahead is because I'm gonna airbrush on top of that, and I wasn't sure if this would dry in time. So that's why I did two of these. So, but this is the same design we're gonna use over there. So we're gonna do two more things with royal icing. How are we doing on questions?
Susan wants to know if the quick connect adapter will work on the original system, and yes, it is a separate part you can buy to adapt all of your old guns to be quick connect versions of themselves with the white system.
Yes.
And Susan says the cookie was beautiful. And you're not even done with it yet.
I know, I'm not done. Wait, hold your opinion, Susan. That's a great question about the quick connect, because people that already own the original Cookie Countess airbrush machine that want to buy the Royal Max because they want, and Royal Max has more air pressure, so if they want to get the Royal Max, they want to know if they can still use their old guns, and you can if you buy the quick connector pieces, and then you can add them. So the great part is if you already have a gun or two, it'll work with the new machine as long as you just buy the quick connectors for it. Okay, next, I'm going to stencil my flowers on this. So again, remember, this was the top, so I'm gonna bring it back. That way I know where I'm going. I'm just gonna wipe off my stencil, my genie a little bit here. And this is my two-piece roses, so that's gonna pop right in the middle. And then I'm just gonna make sure that if this needs any moving around, so I'm looking at the edge of the leaf and where it lines up with the flower. I think we're in a good spot right there. And we're going to do some pink flowers. So I also wanted to choose a cookie that, to show you, a cookie where the openings of the stencil go past the edge of the cookie. And then this cookie, because it's a plaque shape, has a lot of twists and turns. So I wanted to show you how to deal with that if you're stenciling and all those openings go past the stencil when you're using royal icing, because it does require just a little bit of cleanup at the end. All right, so I've got my thick consistency royal icing. And once again, just hold this down. I'm gonna start, now if you want to, you can kind of work your way around and try to start from the outside in. That way you save yourself as much cleanup as you can. But I do want to make sure I get all these openings that go past the cookie. So doing this takes just a little bit more time and precision than like when you're stenciling a PYO and you don't have to worry about any of the icing going past the edge of the cookie, if that makes sense. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with my scraper, same thing I always do, and start pulling away the excess. So I can start to see where the stencil is. Let's see. Just want to make sure I get that corner there. And if you pull this up and there's some little lifts, it really doesn't matter, because like Sarah was saying yesterday, it's kind of nice when the florals aren't all like perfect, because all the flowers look different. All right, so when I pull this off, so see how you've got, you know, these little pieces that are on the end. What you can do is take a scribe, take a thingamajiggy, and just start kind of flicking away these extra pieces. So it's nothing to be like concerned about. And just follow like the edge of the cookie as you do it.
I think people think they mess up when they did this.
Oh, okay, yeah, this is definitely not messing up. Because you have to, you know, you want to get it all the way to the edge. And then you can also kind of decide, like, well, this kind of looks pretty even though it's hanging off. So do I want to leave it? Do I not leave it? So again, like this, some of this is just artistic, you know, decisions. So I'm not going to clean that off because I actually think it looks pretty.
What's the stencil called?
Two-piece mini rose, I think.
Two-piece roses.
Two-piece roses. There we go. So how pretty is that?
Beautiful.
And I like that there's a little dimension to it, and that the leaves, you know, were airbrush, and now the flower sits up a little bit higher because it's royal icing. Cute, right?
Gorgeous.
Okay.
Could only be prettier with glitter all over it.
Oh, I can add some glitter if you want to.
You know, I'm obsessed with the glitter.
Okay. So then I've got one more thing I'm going to do with icing, and then we'll go back to some airbrush. So let me just put this aside. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is a second layer of grass with stencil. With royal icing. So the reason I'm doing this, and now you could just do the airbrush again, but I thought with royal icing it will just add some more dimension again, and add a little more interest to the cookie. All right, so what I want to show you here is, so when I did this one, I had it, you know, with the crown up on the right. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to flip it over so that way I get some blades of grass going in opposite directions. So it'll look a little more natural. So the stencil works no matter which way you have it. So don't think that like it's not going to work if you don't have it that way. So this one, again, the openings come off the end of the cookie. So I'm going to stencil all the way to the end and then just clean up my edge afterwards. So I've got my green icing. And on this one, I'm going to pull it this way. That way I get the cleanest blades, because it does have like those corners that might flick up if you go this way. But I'm gonna make sure I come all the way to the end. And I think I'm not gonna scrape this as smooth or as low as I normally would, so that way the blades look a little more natural. So I'm still gonna scrape this down a little bit, but not as thin as usual. So I'm gonna stop there and pull that off. So now you'll see I have a little bit of cleanup to do right there. And that's about it. So I'm taking my thingamajiggy. You can use the point or the flat end. And that's it. So now it looks more like real grass, you know? So I'm gonna put that aside for a moment. All right, any questions you want me to answer?
We're good over here.
Oh, good. Okay, are there still people watching?
Yes,
okay,
definitely.
Just checking.
Everybody left, but
Everybody left, it's just us.
they're saying it's very pretty.
All right, so now we are moving on to some gold airbrush. Okay, let's do, hang on, I'm coming. All right, so we're gonna do the bands on the diamond rings. So once again, I remembered that's the top. I got it straight. You could always like put a piece of paper down that says top and then just make sure you put your cookies there. And I've got my crown back in the right spot so I can find my way back. This one's a little bit harder. Here we go. Okay.
It's like a puzzle.
I know it really is. Okay. All right, I think we're good. Okay. So I'm going to disconnect this gun with my quick connect, and I'm going to use a different gun for the gold. So for this, I'm using the Cookie Countess 14 karat gold shimmer. Just give it a little, it's always a good idea to give shimmers a shake because sometimes that, the glitter bits can settle. That's the official word for those, glitter bits. I think it's called mica, but. And I'm just gonna grab a paper towel real fast. All right. Here we go. It's always good to stop and take a little look to make sure you got all the openings. I think we're good.
They like that glitter bits coming.
There we go. Isn't she pretty?
So cute.
So pretty. So this would make a great background too. Like we have this stencil, this I Do stencil could go on top of this. That could be really pretty. So that could also be just a nice background. All right, two more things with my gold airbrush. Wait, hold on. All right, the I Do. Where's the? Oh, okay. So I didn't do it live, but I'm going to show you. I stenciled. I should do it. I don't want to skip a step. I forgot a step. I'll do it. I'll do it. Because then everybody will be like, why didn't you do it? All right, so for this one, what I want to end up with is this nice gold stenciled I Do. So the reason I am stenciling it with icing, first of all, is if I were to just airbrush this gold, you would see the blue stripe through it. So it wouldn't be as crisp, it wouldn't have the same definition, you wouldn't see it as clearly. So what I want to do is I'm going to use royal icing to stencil it first. Now, because I want it to be gold, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stencil it with yellow icing, and then I'm going to do the gold after. So I want to show you that little trick. So because again, this is stripes and this is words, I'm gonna take a moment to make sure I line up my words where I want them. And I've got some yellow icing. Now, if you wanted it to be a little bit more of an antique gold, you could also do this with black and then put gold on top of it. Because I want the gold to be pretty gold, I'm gonna use yellow. You could also use like a cream or a tan. So this doesn't take that much icing because there's not a lot of opening, but I'm gonna scrape this down. Okay. So now through the magic of television, it's completely dry now. So I did this one before because what I wanted to show you is how to do the following. So we're also gonna say that I cleaned my stencil, even though I have another one here. So, and you guys are gonna ooh and ah when I do this, okay? I want everybody to do it with me. I'm gonna put my stencil back over this. It's totally dry now. And make sure that I am lined up perfectly. Now, if you wanna paint the gold, you could also paint it, but because I have my airbrush, I'm just gonna airbrush it now with gold. Look at that. So doesn't that pop really nice? So this works so much better than if I were to just airbrush the I do with gold, and not do the icing underneath.
It was a lot faster than hand painting too.
It really is. And, you know, yes, you could pipe this and then paint it with gold, but it's fast doing it this way. Another thing about stenciling that is good to consider is that, like, if you were making, say, favors and you're doing 200 cookie favors for a wedding, stenciling also gives you really nice consistency, so you don't have to worry about the cookies not all looking the same. You know, if you're piping, they're not all gonna look exactly the same, unless you're Sarah, because she's so good at it. But, so the nice thing about stenciling is it takes all that work out of it. It does it for you. All right, so I showed you that. All right, I've got one more thing to do. So this, with the dress, I want to put some roses on the dress. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I am going to kind of do what I just did. Hold on, I'm losing a stencil. Here we go. So I've got my dress, and I'm putting, oops, I'm going to put the stencil back on. And then I've got, this is the same roses as before. I already did this because I figured this out before, but I put a little piece of press and seal. You could put some tape on here just lightly because I want to block off that one rose because I want to put some roses on the bottom of the dress, but not on the bodice. So because I put the dress stencil down first, let me show you again. I don't have to worry about the rose, like the gold, getting on the blue because this stencil acts as a blocker. So now I'm putting this on here. Oops. I tried to be fancy and just like drop it, and I should have paid more attention. Okay. So this is kind of a fun thing too. Like I used to do this at Christmas where I would do Christmas trees with the stencil, and then I would put the stencil back over the Christmas tree and do like stripes, stenciled stripes with the tree, if that makes sense. Okay. All right, so now the gold is only gonna show up here and not there. Isn't it pretty?
So pretty.
So then what I want to do is the last bits are I'm going to use some of the flowers that Sarah made yesterday, and I'm just going to glue them like I did on here and glue them to the top of the grass. So just like she did yesterday, I've got a little bit of stiff white icing, and you know, you can play around with the placement ahead of time if you want to and make sure you have everything where you want it. And then just put a little bit of icing down as a glue. Pop it down on there. And this is already dry. The green grass is already dry, so you don't have to worry about that. Do we like this guy up here? I'm working upside down, so I don't trust myself. And then I was also thinking I would add a little flower on her, to her dress, to make it match with the rest. So we have this cute, these ones with the gold. You could add like a little flower there. And then on the I do, I also added a flower. I need more flowers, Sarah.
I'll get right on it.
I know, you gotta make more for me. Okay. Okay.
Gorgeous.
That's it. We're done. Okay. Bye. So the fun part about these cookies for me is that I didn't have to pipe any of the designs, and I just used stencils. So I used all my tools but I'm still get to be creative. So don't think that, you know, because you're using stencils, it takes away your creativity. It 100% does not, because it's all how you put together. It's your color choices. It's the shapes of the cookie. It's how you use them. So you're still being creative. But if you don't have a steady hand for piping those perfect letters, stencils can be a great thing for that. The multi-piece stencils are great because it gives you good layering effects, and you can do things that you wouldn't be able to do if you were just piping. Questions? Are we good?
No.
That means I have taught really well.
You have converted Margaret. Now she wants to learn to airbrush.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and don't be afraid of your airbrush machine. I did see a few comments over the week that from my first live on Monday about airbrushing that, oh, I've had an airbrush since Christmas and I haven't taken it out of the box, or I've had one for a year. I'm looking at you. Take it out of the box. It's not that hard. You just have to practice, okay? If there's no more questions, we can end it here, and thank you for joining me. I hope this helped figure out around your multi-piece stencils and some different ideas on layering stencils. And keep an eye out for next week. We will go live. I think it'll be Wednesday, but we'll post about what time, and Sarah will talk us through some airbrushing and troubleshooting. And again, if you're watching a replay, you can continue to ask questions, and we will do our best to answer them. So thanks you guys for joining us. This is really fun this week, getting to hang out with everybody, and have a great weekend.